There is a strange loneliness that comes not from having nothing, but from saying too much to the wrong people. And most people realize this only in old age, when it's too late. My dear friends, I stand before you today not as someone who knows everything, but as someone who has watched life closely. I've met people with great success and quiet regret, people with big families and deep silence in their hearts, and one truth keeps returning to me again and again. Wisdom is not just about what you learn in life, it's also about what you learn to protect. When you are young, you want to be understood. When you grow older, you just want peace. And peace comes when you know what not to share. Let me walk you through 7 life lessons, 7 things that, especially in old age, must be guarded with grace. There are some pains in life that cannot be explained in a hurry. They did not arrive overnight, and they do not leave overnight either. They settle quietly inside you, shaping the way you speak, the way you smile, the way you trust. And the mistake many people make, especially as they grow older, is believing that if they speak about that pain to everyone, it will somehow become lighter. But pain does not heal through volume. Pain heals through understanding. I have met people who spoke about their wounds endlessly and yet remained deeply broken. Not because their pain was too big, but because they kept offering it to hands that were not meant to hold it. My dear friends, not everyone who asks what happened is ready to sit with you in the truth of your suffering. Some people listen out of curiosity, some listen out of comparison, some listen just long enough to retell your story in places you will never enter. Pain is not weakness. Pain is proof that you lived fully, loved deeply, and trusted sincerely. But unhealed pain is sensitive. It needs protection. When you expose it carelessly, it does not feel heard. It feels violated. You walk away emptier than before, wondering why sharing didn't help, and slowly bitterness replaces trust. There is a difference between sharing and spilling. Sharing happens with people who listen more than they speak, people who don't rush to give advice, people who hold your silence without trying to fix you. Spilling happens when pain pours out of desperation, seeking relief instead of healing, and desperation attracts the wrong audience. As you grow older, life teaches you this lesson gently but firmly. Not everyone deserves access to your inner world. Your wounds are not public property, they are sacred spaces, and sacred spaces require care. Sometimes the safest place for your pain is silence, not empty silence, but reflective silence. Silence where you sit with God. Silence where you process, pray, write, cry if you must. Silence where your heart reorganizes itself. Because healing happens not when pain is constantly retold, but when it is slowly understood. There are people who will hear your pain and use it to define you. Instead of seeing your strength, they will see your scars. Instead of seeing your growth, they will see your past. And once people freeze you in your worst moment, it becomes very difficult to grow beyond it in their eyes. That is why wisdom teaches restraint. Old age is not just about years, it is about clarity. And clarity whispers this truth. You don't need everyone to validate your experience. You don't need sympathy from a crowd. Why? Because when goodness is fed by recognition, it becomes dependent. And anything dependent is fragile. True kindness is stable. It does not shake when it is unseen. It does not shrink when it is unpraised. It does not feel insulted when it is forgotten. Real goodness survives in silence because its reward is internal. Peace, joy, alignment. When you announce your good deeds, something subtle happens inside you. You start measuring your value by reactions, likes, compliments, gratitude. And the moment those reactions are less than expected, disappointment enters. Slowly, service turns into transaction. You begin expecting returns, appreciation, loyalty, and when they don't come, resentment grows. But service was never meant to keep score. As life moves forward and people grow older, they realize that the heart gets tired of carrying expectations. Quiet goodness is lighter. It asks nothing. It burdens no one, and most importantly, it frees you from the need to be noticed. There is also another truth we often ignore. When you publicly display good deeds, people start doubting intentions. What began as pure can be questioned. What was meant to uplift can feel performative. Silence protects sincerity. It allows your actions to speak without explanation. Think about the sun. It does not announce that it will rise. It does not post reminders about giving light. It simply appears every day unconditionally. That consistency is why it is trusted. In the same way, let your goodness be something people feel, not something they are told about. Some people say, but if I don't talk about it, how will others learn? They will learn from your behavior, not your broadcast. Example is louder than explanation. When people experience kindness directly from you, it changes them far more than any story you could tell about yourself. In old age, peace becomes more valuable than praise. You start understanding that announcing good deeds binds you to people's opinions. Silence releases you from them. And freedom, my friends, is priceless. There is also a spiritual truth here. When you do good quietly, you stay connected to the source of that goodness. Ego doesn't interfere. Pride doesn't interrupt. The heart stays soft. The intention stays clean. And clean intentions invite blessings we cannot calculate. Quiet service refines character. It builds humility. It reminds you that you are an instrument, not the source. That whatever good passed through you was never yours to keep credit for. It was yours only to deliver. And one more thing, when you stop announcing your good deeds, you begin noticing others more. You stop competing over who helps more, who gives more, who sacrifices more. Comparison fades, cooperation rises, and that shift alone brings enormous peace. So do good generously, do good consistently, do good sincerely, but let the noise remain outside. Because in the twilight years of life, when memories speak louder than words, you will realize this: the good you did quietly stayed with you. The applause you chased quietly left you. And that is the difference between goodness that decorates the ego and goodness that nourishes the soul. Money is a sensitive subject, not because it is evil, but because it exposes intention. It reveals discipline, insecurity, fear, and desire, often all at once. And as people grow older, they learn this lesson through experience, sometimes through pain. Not everyone needs to know what you have, what you earn, or what you are saving. When you share your financial details openly, you think you are being honest. But honesty without wisdom can invite unnecessary complications. Money does not just change numbers, it changes dynamics. Conversations shift, expectations quietly form, relationships that were once simple become transactional without anyone saying a word. I have seen friendships weaken not because of betrayal, but because of borrowed assumptions. Someone starts measuring your choices. Another begins questioning your boundaries. A third quietly resents your comfort while comparing it to their struggle. None of this would have existed if silence had been maintained. Money is energy, and when you expose that energy to too many opinions, it becomes unstable. Everyone comes with advice, everyone has suggestions, everyone believes they know what you should do with what you earned through your discipline and sacrifice. Slowly, clarity turns into confusion. Privacy is not secrecy, it is responsibility. Just as you would not leave your home unlocked, you should not leave your financial life open for casual discussion. Protection is wisdom, not pride. When you speak too freely about money, people stop seeing effort, they see opportunity. Some begin to expect help, some feel entitled to your resources, some test boundaries, not because they are bad people, but because human nature responds to what is visible. And then comes another danger: comparison. Once numbers are known, value gets misread. People are no longer seen for who they are, but for what they have. You get invited or excluded for the wrong reasons. And this confusion eventually robs relationships of sincerity. As age adds years, simplicity becomes precious. You no longer want to explain why you can help in one situation but not another. You no longer want to justify your choices. Silence gives you that freedom. There is also inner peace in financial privacy. When fewer people know, fewer people judge. When fewer people judge, fewer doubts enter your mind. Confidence grows when your focus stays on stewardship, not opinion. Your financial journey is personal. It carries your fears, your discipline, your mistakes, your growth. Not everyone has walked your path. Not everyone understands your values. So not everyone deserves to comment on it. And there is a spiritual dimension here as well. Wealth, whether big or small, comes with responsibility. When you keep that responsibility quiet, gratitude deepens. Contentment increases, pride decreases. You begin seeing money not as identity, but as a tool. Something to use wisely, not something to display. Old age brings clarity that youth overlooks. You realize that peace is worth more than transparency, that dignity is worth more than explanation, that silence is often safer than sharing. Let your work speak, let your stability reflect discipline, let your generosity remain dignified. Because in the end, true prosperity is not about how much people know you have, but about how calm your heart remains while managing it. Fear has a strange habit. The moment you speak it out loud to the wrong person, it grows. What began as a passing concern suddenly becomes a certainty. What was once a question turns into a heavy prediction. This is why wisdom teaches us to be careful with our fears, especially those tied to the future. Most fears are imagined conversations with a future that has not yet arrived. They borrow trouble from tomorrow and demand payment today. And when you start sharing these imagined outcomes with everyone around you, those fears receive attention, agreement, and reinforcement. They settle deeper into your mind. As people grow older, they realize that not everyone knows how to respond to fear responsibly. Some people magnify it, some catastrophize it, some project their own disappointments onto your life. And suddenly, your fear is no longer yours. It is a shared burden, echoing back to you in louder tones. Fear does not need an audience, it needs discernment. There is a reason faith traditions across cultures emphasize hope, trust, and surrender. Not because uncertainty disappears, but because constant discussion of fear keeps the mind trapped in what might go wrong instead of what could go right. Repeated, fear-focused conversation trains the heart to expect loss. Think of fear like a spark. In the presence of wisdom, it fades. In the presence of too much oxygen, it becomes a fire. Talking to the wrong people is oxygen. This does not mean you deny reality. It means you choose where reality is discussed. Share your concerns with those who bring calm, not chaos. With people who remind you of responsibility, not just risk. With voices that strengthen your courage instead of your anxiety. Old age teaches another gentle truth: many fears never happen, but the stress from carrying them steals years of peace. When you look back, you realize how much energy was spent worrying about things that worked themselves out. Silence can be a shield. When you don't constantly voice your fear, your mind remains open to possibility. Creativity stays alive. Confidence breathes. Problems are approached practically, not emotionally. There is also dignity in composure. When people consistently hear your worries, they begin seeing you through the lens of anxiety. They start doubting your strength even when you are capable. Protecting your fears protects your image, not for ego but for credibility. And there is deep spirituality in this discipline. Faith is not the absence of fear. Faith is choosing trust in the presence of uncertainty. Every time you refrain from feeding fear with speech, you strengthen trust internally. Old age is about conserving energy. You learn to invest it in what builds, not what drains. Carrying your fears politely, responsibly, and quietly helps you move forward without being weighed down by imagined futures. Pray over your fears. Write them down if you must. Reflect on them privately. Act where action is needed. But do not scatter them everywhere, hoping someone else will solve them for you. Because courage grows in silence. Strength matures in restraint. And peace visits those who learn that not every fear deserves to be spoken. Some are meant to be outgrown. Family is the place where emotions are born, before language learns to control them. That is why family conflicts feel deeper than any other disagreement. They touch identity, memory, and belonging. And because they hurt more, people often make the mistake of speaking about them everywhere, hoping relief will come through sympathy. But what usually follows is more damage, not healing. When family conflicts are spoken about publicly, they stop being problems and start becoming narratives. Outsiders hear one side, form opinions, and those opinions stick. Even when reconciliation happens later, the labels remain. Words once released cannot be gathered back. As people grow older, they realize that not every truth needs a witness. Some truths need protection. Family disputes require dignity, not discussion. They involve people you may disagree with but still share roots with. And roots, even when tangled, should not be cut publicly. Publicizing family issues invites judgment from people who will never carry the consequences. They comment freely because they are not emotionally invested. But you, and only you, live with the aftermath of their advice. Their words fade, your relationships remain strained. There is also a subtle betrayal in oversharing family matters. What feels like honesty can become exposure. Even when you are hurting, loyalty still matters. Respect still matters, especially when emotions are charged. Silence in this case is not suppression. It is wisdom. It creates space for cooling, reflection, and careful response. When conflicts are kept within safe boundaries, solutions remain possible. When they are spread everywhere, pride enters, sides form, and reconciliation becomes harder. As years pass, people begin valuing peace over being right. You realize that winning arguments but losing relationships is a poor exchange. Quiet conversations behind closed doors heal faster than loud explanations in public spaces. Family conflict handled privately also preserves self-respect. When you refrain from sharing details, you maintain emotional maturity. Others see restraint, not reaction. That restraint earns trust even from those who disagree with you. There is also compassion in privacy. Today you speak in pain. Tomorrow you may regret being so open. Silence protects you from future remorse. Healing speeds up when you don't have to manage outside opinions along with internal emotions. Old age teaches patience. You stop rushing to react. You start choosing timing. You understand that some offenses fade with time, understanding, and soft restraint. If someone must be spoken to, choose someone who honors confidentiality. Someone who wants resolution, not entertainment. Someone who understands that family wounds are delicate and should be handled with care. Because at the end of life, titles, arguments, and explanations lose significance. What remains are relationships. And relationships survive best when protected from unnecessary exposure. Not every pain needs an audience. Some need maturity, some need silence, and some need time. Plans are fragile in their early moments. They are like seeds just placed in the soil, full of potential but not yet strong enough to face harsh weather. And one of the most common mistakes people make, especially later in life, is sharing their next move too early, too widely, and too casually. When you speak about your plans before they mature, you invite noise. Opinions arrive before clarity. Doubts enter before discipline has settled. People mean well, but their words carry their own fears, experiences, and limitations. What excites you may threaten them. What challenges you may scare them. And suddenly, your vision begins to wobble. Old age brings wisdom about timing. You learn that not everything needs immediate explanation. Some plans need silence to grow. Energy spent explaining is energy taken away from execution. Focus divided becomes progress delayed. There is also a subtle psychological shift that happens when you talk too much about your plans. The mind enjoys the feeling of progress simply from sharing. You receive encouragement, attention, validation, and that emotional reward can quietly replace action. You feel accomplished without having built anything. Silence keeps hunger alive. When plans are kept private, responsibility increases. There is no audience to impress, no pressure to perform for approval. There is only commitment. And commitment strengthens character. Many people carry scars from plans that were publicly announced but never completed. The embarrassment lingers. The explanations exhaust. Silence would have protected dignity. As the years pass, people begin valuing results over recognition. You judge less by what was promised and more by what was delivered. You learn to move quietly, steadily, confidently. There is wisdom in letting success announce itself. Results speak with authority. They don't need defense. They don't need clarification. Spiritual maturity also teaches restraint here. Not everyone is meant to accompany you to the next chapter of your journey. Some people belong to past seasons. When you share plans prematurely, you bind yourself to opinions from chapters that are already closing. Quiet progress creates freedom. Freedom from expectation. Freedom from pressure. Freedom from comparison. If guidance is needed, seek it from one or two minds you trust deeply. Mentors who speak with experience, not emotion. Counsel that sharpens your plan, not clouds it. Old age is not about slowing down, it is about refining movement. You stop sprinting with announcements and start walking with certainty. Let your plans breathe. Let them strengthen. Let them prove themselves quietly. Because in time you will discover this truth. Explained dreams often fade, but quietly built plans endure. As the years pass, one of the clearest signs of wisdom is restraint. Not the kind that limits expression, but the kind that preserves power. There comes a stage in life when you realize that knowing more does not obligate you to say more. In fact, some of the most centered, peaceful people are those who speak very little about what they truly understand. Early in life, we often confuse intelligence with expression. We believe that if we know something, we must share it. If we are right, we must prove it. If we have insight, we must correct others. But age gently teaches a different lesson. Wisdom exposed too often becomes wasted energy. Every truth does not need an audience. Some truths work best as quiet companions. When you speak everything you know, you invite argument where there is no need, ego where there should be calm, and resistance where there could have been reflection. People rarely accept wisdom when they haven't asked for it. More often they feel challenged by it, threatened by it, defensive around it. And suddenly something meant to help becomes something that divides. Old age brings clarity about peace. You begin to choose silence not because you have nothing to add, but because you value harmony more than being right. You realize that correcting others constantly does not improve their lives, but it disturbs your own. There is power in knowing when to step back, in allowing others to learn the way you had to learn, through experience. Advice given at the wrong time does not become wisdom, it becomes noise. When you stop sharing everything you know, listening improves, understanding deepens, humility grows. You realize that learning never ends, and even silence can teach. There is also safety in restraint. Knowledge, when shared without context, can be misunderstood, misused, or mocked. Silence protects integrity. It preserves depth. Spiritual maturity encourages this discipline. It reminds us that the ego enjoys displaying knowledge, while the soul values stillness. The more aligned you become internally, the less you feel the need to prove yourself externally. Old age refines speech. Words become intentional. You speak when it heals. You speak when it serves. You speak when it's welcomed. And when you don't speak, you don't feel weak. You feel free. Because in the end, wisdom is not measured by how much you say, but by how much peace you carry. And when all these lessons come together, something beautiful happens inside you. You begin to move lighter through life, less burdened by explanation, less dependent on approval, less wounded by noise. Old age does not make you weak. It makes you selective with words, selective with people, selective with energy. You stop trying to be understood by everyone and start trying to be at peace with yourself. You realize that silence is not emptiness, it is maturity. Privacy is not hiding, it is wisdom. Restraint is not fear, it is strength. You learn that life is not about saying everything you feel or proving everything you know. It is about protecting what matters most: your peace, your dignity, and your connection with God. When you guard your pain, goodness, money, fears, family matters, plans, and wisdom, you are not withdrawing from life, you are honoring it. And here is the truth I want you to carry with you. The older you get, the less you need to explain yourself. Those meant to walk with you will understand without words. And those who don't understand were never meant to walk that far. Live quietly, serve sincerely, trust deeply, because in the end, a peaceful heart is the greatest wealth a human being can carry. As you step forward from this moment, remember this one simple, timeless truth. Life is not asking you to be loud, it is asking you to be aligned with your values, aligned with your faith, aligned with the voice that speaks quietly inside you when the world grows noisy. You don't need to explain your journey to everyone. You don't need to defend your silence. You don't need approval to live with integrity. What you protect today will become your strength tomorrow. What you guard in silence will grow in power, and what you place in God's hands will never collapse under human opinion. So choose your words with intention. Choose your circles with wisdom. Choose faith over fear, discipline over distraction, and peace over performance. And when God opens a door for you, walk through it humbly. When life tests you, stand firm quietly. When success finds you, bow your head in gratitude. Go live a life so grounded, so sincere, and so faithful that even in silence, your existence becomes a message. If this message spoke to your heart, don't just listen, live it. Carry it into your choices, carry it into your relationships, and let today be the day you guard your peace and walk forward with purpose.